The Michigan State Spartans are in a terrible spot right now, as they may finish last in the Big Ten, and things have just gone up in flames for head coach Jonathan Smith. He thought he had his next great quarterback in Aiden Childs, who he brought with him from Oregon State, but he has just not been very great. But today, Michigan State may have found their new quarterback. One is Alessio Milivojevic. That may be the most difficult name I've ever had to pronounce on my YouTube channel so far, but in today's video, I want to talk about how Michigan State found this new quarterback, how he went from a Ball State commit to now potentially the future of the program, and just how this quarterback situation all shaped out. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you can support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to bring you guys up to speed with what the Michigan State quarterback room has looked like recently, I feel like they just haven't really had a guy who's done much in a while. Aiden Childs so far in 2025 has thrown for 1,400 yards with 10 touchdowns and 3 picks. He really wasn't making that many big plays either, and last season, Childs only had 2,400 yards with 13 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. That has been the quarterback of the Jonathan Smith era so far, but going back the last few years, it really hasn't been all that much better. In 2023, the quarterback room was Catton Hauser, Noah Kim, and Sam Levitt. I believe all three of those guys are now starting at new schools, as Catton Hauser had 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2023 and is now the starting quarterback for East Carolina. Noah Kim had over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he is currently the starting quarterback for Eastern Michigan. And then Sam Levitt had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and is now the guy for ASU, but he is injured. Before that, you had a healthy dose of Peyton Thorne, who ended up passing for nearly 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns in 2022, and before that had over 3,000 yards and 27 touchdowns in 2021. The quarterback play has obviously regressed over the last few years, but it does seem like Michigan State is actually able to get good talent coming out of high school, but the best ones seem to transfer, while the ones that aren't as good get to start. Now let's do a deep dive on Alessio. So Alessio ended up growing up in the town of Naperville, Illinois, and played 3 seasons of varsity football at St. Francis High School, which is also the Spartans. His dad ended up being a coach there, and from a young age he always wanted to be a quarterback, and was pretty good at it. He didn't get a chance to play a ton, but eventually during his junior season, he blew up. He ended up throwing for 2,450 yards and 36 total touchdowns. He ended up running the spread attack for them and was starting to blow up as a recruit at least a little bit. He knew he was special, and when asked what he brings to the field, he said, quote, "My number one attribute is my accuracy. Reading the field, knowing where I'm going with the ball, getting in there with my arm strength, and going over my progressions are my number one strength." After that, he ended up getting 7 total offers, with schools like Ball State, Miami of Ohio, and Penn connecting with him, and also schools like Eastern Michigan, Bowling Green, and Colgate. Yeah, this guy was a fringe FBS quarterback prospect, but during his senior season, he would blow up. He became the number 1 quarterback in the state of Illinois, and his coach said, quote, "If we don't have the best quarterback in the state, I don't know who is right now. We have 4 dynamite receivers, and when you have a quarterback like that, give him time and he's able to make plays." In total during his senior season, Alessio ended up passing for 3,408 yards, 40 touchdowns, and just 4 picks. He ended up leading them to the semifinals and gained multiple Power 4 offers, including Michigan State, Ole Miss, and Nebraska. But it seemed the only committable one was from the Spartans. This was a late flyer thrown to him, as he had been committed to Ball State for a couple of months. Obviously, playing at Ball State fulfills the dream of playing in the FBS, but playing for the Spartans in the Big Ten was much different. 2 days after he got offered by Sparty, he decided to take a visit, and he committed there. Sure, Ball State had potential for early starting reps, but he wanted to play in the Power 4, and that's why he joined Sparty. What were the scouts' take? Well, one 24/7 Sports analyst said, quote, "He has a good arm and makes plays on the run. He displayed ability to move around in the pocket before delivering passes with accuracy. He throws a good deep ball with touch and zip, and he's impressive under pressure and in rollout situations." He ended up going under the radar and was one of those guys that you'd probably hear about later. He was sort of a stash and develop pick for a Power 4 school, and according to 24/7 Sports, Alessio was a 3-star recruit, the number 53 quarterback, and the 821st best player in the class of 2024. So, how did he end up doing at Michigan State? Well, let's take a look. Okay, so when Jonathan Smith came to East Lansing, he brought with him Aiden Childs from Oregon State, and they just lost Noah Kim, Catton Hauser, and Sam Levitt. Honestly, that was a crazy quarterback room when you think about it. So last season, he ended up being a backup and appeared in one game against Rutgers, going 0 of 1 for an interception. They lost 41-14. That's pretty much all he was known for during his freshman season, as he was the third stringer behind Tommy Schuster. But with him moving on from Michigan State, he saw the opportunity to grab the backup spot, and eventually it was announced that he would be the backup to Aiden Childs. Childs was okay last year, but many were hoping for a second-year jump, in which he'd blow up more. That didn't end up happening. Also, things didn't look great for Alessio, as early on in the season against Western Michigan, in his second career passing attempt, he threw a pick six. He was honestly off to a horrible start, but since then, things have been very different. He appeared in mop-up duty against Nebraska, going 6 of 7 for 71 yards and a touchdown and a rushing score. He ended up going 8 of 18 for a touchdown against UCLA, and also ended up throwing for 50 yards against Indiana. Last weekend against number 25 Michigan, he went 5 of 6 for 60 yards and a touchdown, and with Aiden Childs' struggles and Michigan State's struggles as a whole, many were wondering if he was ever going to get an opportunity to play. Sure, he was doing well in garbage time and in blowout games, but it seemed he always led the offense on a scoring drive. After last week's game against Michigan, it was the 4th straight week he led his team to a scoring drive in the 4th quarter, and through garbage time, he had completed 22 of 37 passes for 281 yards and 3 touchdowns with just 1 interception. But finally, he got his break this past weekend, as today against Minnesota, he made his first career start. What's interesting is Drake Lindsey was ranked 2 spots below him in the recruiting world, and that's the guy who was starting for Minnesota, so honestly, it was an interesting matchup. I would have never expected these two redshirt freshmen to start against each other. But Jonathan Smith was hoping that he could create a spark, and that's exactly what he did. Today against Minnesota, he ended up going 20 of 28 for 311 yards and 1 touchdown, while also completing 72% of his passes. Honestly, I thought he looked pretty good when I was watching the game, and there was a couple questionable calls there at the end, like when his receiver got held, but they ended up picking up the flag, which I haven't seen before, and eventually Minnesota won in overtime. But Michigan State found their guy at quarterback in my opinion. It went about as well as a collegiate start could go, except for maybe getting a win, and his 311 yards would have been the second highest of Aiden Childs' entire career. He also did not commit a single turnover, and the one thing that they're saying he needs to work on is getting rid of the ball quicker, as he was sacked 7 times, but in his first career start, he looked good, and honestly, I think he's going to end up blowing up. I did a video on Mason Heinchel a few weeks ago for Pitt, after his first crazy game, and I'm predicting the same thing for Alessio. Who knows, maybe he'll throw 6 picks next week and make me look like an idiot, but for now, it looks like he has that it factor for Michigan State. I hope the best for him moving forward, and Jonathan Smith is probably hoping he can lead him to some wins to end the year so he can save his job. But what do you guys think? If you're a Michigan State fan, what do you think of Alessio? Why did Aiden Childs not work out? And who's another player I could cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out some of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.